Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like Blizzard is finally in the tuning process of the beta, which is good news all around. It means that they must be somewhat happy with where specs are roughly, and it looks like they're just ready to kind of make some changes to the damage and healing throughput that classes are able to pull out. So, a couple of specs have had some changes to their base toolkit. Feral being one, we've had a change to Berserk. Obviously, our big 3-minute cooldown. Now, I'll just kind of run you through some of the main changes here. I won't go through everything in pure detail, but I will link the links down in the description so you can read through those at your leisure. But basically, they're looking to make Berserk more powerful. Right now, it kind of doesn't really do much for us during Bloodlust. Like, you're already kind of pretty much capped on energy, and really it's better just to save Berserk until after Bloodlust anyway. So, it's not great there, and it's kind of weird when your 3-minute cooldown isn't good with Bloodlust. It just kind of doesn't really make any sense, that big push moment that you and like everyone in your group is going for, and then it's kind of underwhelming. So this should hopefully be a welcome change, but let's break down how it's probably going to function. So Blizzard has said in an upcoming build, Feral will find some new things and some rearranged things around Berserk, Incarn, Shred, and Rake. The main goal is to put more power and interest into baseline Berserk. Now, they say an upcoming build that's currently live on the beta, and it is also live on the PTR. You can, even if you don't have beta, even if you don't have an active WoW subscription, you can jump onto the PTR, just download it from the Battle.net client, and you can test these changes there now. Berserk, without requiring a talent, now makes Shred and Rake deal damage as though you were stealthed, and makes finishing moves refund 2 combo points. A new upgrade to Shred makes it generate an extra combo point when used from stealth, and by extension, during Berserk. Incarnation is always lasts 30 seconds, so 10 seconds longer than Berserk, and grants all the benefits of Berserk, plus 1 additional effect now. Some energy cost reduction. It continues to allow 1 in-combat re-stealth. So Shred and Incarn have kind of swapped places there, so now Berserk is giving you the actual benefit, and then Incarn's just kind of giving you a bit of extra energy. Whereas before it was Berserk gave you the energy, and Incarn gave you kind of like an actual gameplay benefit. Stealth bonuses to Shred and Rake rebalanced somewhat. Shred higher than live, and Rake lower than live. Both to make them more competitive and to reflect their presence on a baseline cooldown. So that is a little bit of a rough one, because now Rake, and by extension your bleeds, are doing less damage comparable to, say, your Shreds. And that kind of is a little bit sucky, because, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I like the bleed style, but it also ends up, it's still a net gain, right? So to kind of break down some of how these are actually going to end up looking, so Shred is now going to do 60% increased damage from stealth. It was previously 100% on the beta. So they have nerfed it from what it was on the beta, but they've still buffed it from what it is on live. So this is still overall a net gain from live, right? And Rake, this is where the trouble comes in, and people have gone, well, wait, Rake's been nerfed. And technically, yes, but actually, no. So Rake is now going to do 60% increased damage from stealth, not 100%. And I know that does seem like a nerf, but it's just a rebalancing, because when you start from stealth, normally before this Berserk change, if you do 1 stealth Rake in combat, and that was the first Rake of combat, and that one would always do 100% increased damage. If you were a Night Elf, you could proc mid-combat a second stealth Rake, right? So actually this change hits Night Elves a little bit harder than the rest of us. But once you're in that Berserk stage, you now can cast multiple Rakes. So during that Berserk stage, you can cast like 1 or 2 Rakes, right? So you could actually gain 3 lots of 60% increased damage to your Rake in just one like kind of 3-minute situation, right? The more Berserk uses you get in combat, the better this actually ends up being for you. This is actually a buff to Rake, because now instead of getting 1 issue of 100%, we get many issues of 60% increased damage on our Rake if used during our Berserk window. Now that is going to be the question. Are we going to be using Rake from our Berserk window? So the way this is going to work with when you use a finisher during your Berserk window, you generate 2 combo points. And Shred, if you crit with Shred, so if you crit with Shred right now, you gain 2 combo points. With this change, you now generate an additional combo point in Berserk. So that means if you use a finisher and then you use one shred and it crits, you're now at 5 combo points, right? So you can basically default to a rotation of shred, bite, shred, bite, shred, bite during your Berserk window. The only issues with this, and there are limitations to it, is sometimes if you don't crit, you end up at 4 combo points. So then you kind of feel a little bit iffy. You could, in those situations, kind of reapply your bleeds, so your rake and your thrash, to proc your blood talents. Or you could just say, forget it, I'm going to use another shred and I'm going to bite again. It seems like this change is going to be changing our rotation, potentially, during the Berserk window. Like, we could definitely just become that shred bite kind of bot, just a shred bite bot. But it's likely that you'll still want to be using your rake and your thrash to generate your blood talent. But also there is a conduit. And the conduit increases the damage your ferocious bite does by 3% per bleed that you have on the target. So if you rake, rip, and thrash, you want to maintain those for bigger ferocious bites. And if you're ferocious biting more regularly, then having that 9% damage increase is really strong. And that's only going to get stronger as the expansion goes on and the conduits level up. So eventually it'll be 21% increased damage on your ferocious bite whenever you have your full bleeds up. So it's looking like it might not necessarily massively change our rotation, but it could potentially go into this shred and bite phase, which I actually think would be really cool and really interesting. Because you'd basically be performing your blood talents rotation during the whole fight, and then during your Berserk window, okay, now it's go time. And now you just go into this kind of like execute phase-esque style where you just like shred and bite, shred and bite, shred and bite. And then after 20 seconds, you return back to your normal rotation. So it's kind of like a reward for doing the other things correctly. The problem I see with it is that it's quite basic, and like I've said about the numbers, I mean, we've just got to see what the numbers end up being, right? Like, if the numbers are shred and biting is the best DPS comparable, and like you just forget about your conduit, you forget about your ferocious bite, you forget about your blood talents, then sure, that'll be the rotation. But if the numbers are still better to actually wait for blood talents, then that's fine, and you'll continue to proc blood talents. The only thing I'm considering here as well is during your Berserk window now, you don't have a whole lot of energy. So now you are limited by your energy. So it's kind of a case of you want to perform as many of these shred bite combos as you can, but then to maintain your bleeds at the same time, you are very, very sparse on energy. Now there is a legendary ring that you can get, which makes it so clear casting abilities generate 25% of their energy cost. So you actually gain energy whenever you clear cast, and your maximum energy is increased by 60. Now you could also opt for taking Incon and get that additional energy regen. I found during this rotation with just the shred bite, worked quite well when you had Bloodlust. Outside of Bloodlust, it was difficult to get a large amount of bites and shreds into that small window of 20 seconds. However, as the expansion goes on and we get more haste and more crit, this should be a lot easier. There were times when I was having to double shred instead of single shred per finisher. So it should make this a lot smoother as we get more secondary stats as we go through the expansion. So far it's looking really cool. It's looking really interesting. It's a good change. It's definitely a buff. Don't be fooled by the whole Rake nerf. It's still a net buff. It's just Rake is comparable to Shred, is now technically a bit weaker. But it's still overall a gain. This is good news. I hope that you guys are excited about it. And yeah, like I said, links are in the comments down below. I'm going to be testing this out on beta right now on my Twitch, twitch.tv/cybeslat. If you're literally just watching this video as I've released it, then I'll still be live. So I will see you guys then, and I hope you enjoyed this one. See you in the next one.